Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to in a video, and I know it's all red and stuff because it's that time of the morning of the orange aesthetic, I guess. But this is a paid request from Eric. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting any type of videos, whether it be a topic, reaction, commentary, review, re-review, tier list, ranking, video game playthrough, whatever the case may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. I do have a Patreon and a CashApp. People have asked about that. All those links are down in the info box, and I'll get to those as soon as possible. But this is for Shin Kamen Rider, I guess, because there was a series of films like Shin Ultraman, Shin Godzilla, where they're bringing back these properties to try to give either a different take or a serious take or something to that effect. Now, I don't know much about Kamen Rider, the source material, other than the pilot, which I did see and reviewed, and thought it was there. That was okay. Now, I could tell that the first chunk of it does follow the pilot, and then it feels like a whole season of a show repurposed into a 2-hour movie. Now, I would say at the end of the day, I did like the film. I was entertained by the film. I thought that the costumes looked really cool, both on Kamen Rider and some of the villains. Like there's this spider augmented guy, Spider Aug, that he kind of looked like Cyrax from Mortal Kombat, but he was a red. So I forget who the other guy was in Mortal Kombat who had the red suit. Kind of looked like him, because I think Cyrax was the yellow one. I forget who the other one was, but he had like dreadlock type of hair, had a helmet, bodysuit. I did like it. I thought it looked cool. I did like Cyrax from Mortal Kombat. And other creatures, there's one who's a chameleon, and they have like a bit of a green suit. They turn invisible at some points. I did the Kamen Rider and his motorcycle. I thought looked pretty badass. When the fight scenes happen, they're very much stylistic and bloody. I mean, when Kamen Rider's fighting the henchmen, there's at least two scenes, one in a forest and another one later on, where each time he punches or kicks, you see big splashes of blood. And he's like punching or stomping through people's heads, and each kick there's a big splash of blood. Granted, that kind of misled me because one of these happens very early on, so I thought it was going to be, man, this is going to be like a gory. It's not. It's not as gory. I mean, those parts are gory, but he's never that gory against the other main villains. I'm like, man, this guy's going to be ripping heads off and shoving up people's asses, and it's not the case. So, yeah, it was a bit misleading, but those two scenes are definitely standouts because of that. Where he did punch, kick, blood splashing everywhere. Like it was a Dead Alive type of movie. But that's really the only time that happened is those two scenes. Which I thought was kind of weird. Because I'm thinking, okay, now he's going to be like ripping villains in half or uppercutting them and their head and spine comes out. No, it's not the case. So I kind of wish they just went for it. If they wanted to start on that route, down that road, they should have just gone full force. Riccio, the story of Ricky style. They should have just gone that route, if that's the case. But they didn't. But that was still fun to see. Now the plot is going to be a bit hard to explain because it does this thing where there'll be an action scene, which is fun. Yes, at times heavily CGI'd, but I appreciate kind of the stylistic way they're doing it and the ambitiousness and the way to try to make it like a, I don't know what, like an anime style. So early on when Kamen Rider does a super kick, there's this cool looking shot where he's kicking downward and the guy's on the bottom. So he's like this jump kick down and the guy's flying through the air and you see it for a good while till it lands on the ground. there's a whole finale in this tunnel where there's two Kamen Riders and they fight against all these evil Kamen Riders. And again, it's very CGI, but again, the style, and there's even a point where you can almost, the only thing you can see is kind of the red lights of their eyes of the helmet as they're doing the fights. I mean, okay, this is kind of entertaining, and there's definitely some decent choreography in some of the other fights. But they don't be long sections of expository dialogue. We gotta explain this, we gotta explain this. And it's weird because this doesn't really have an origin as part of the story. Because it starts out with Kamen Rider is on a motorcycle with a girl, they're being chased by two trucks, there's an explosion, they go downhill, and then the fighting begins. And that's again, I thought, oh, okay, this is a hell of a way to start. Starts definitely explosive, and again, he's punching henchmen, and they're pretty much exploding in bloody bits, painting the whole forest red. And the idea is he can't control how violent he gets. But again, that only happens like one more time, and then anyway, you see the origin, like these quick flashbacks, which I thought was weird. It doesn't start like a proper movie where, okay, this is who the character is, this is what they're doing before the shit hits the fan, this is what their life was like, this is the people that he knew, all that stuff. It's literally right to the action, a little bit of flashbacks, and then we're on our merry way. Where he was kidnapped by Shocker and brainwashing, and even then, even though it's a 2-hour movie, I'm still not sure what Shocker was. I guess they want like peace on Earth, but in their way. Because you could tell they wanted to jam as much as they could into this. So on the one hand, there's a lot of fun to be had in certain parts, but it feels overstuffed. And because you have to stop and kind of give all this dialogue to link this section to the next section, it kind of the stop and go feel to it. And in a sad way, you're kind of waiting for the next action piece. I appreciate at times the seriousness that they tried to showcase into it, whether it be the lead character's turmoil, about sacrifice, about this lady, there's something to her as well, her bit of backstory, Roriko, sorry I butchered that name, and then dealing with her brother, who's one of these augmented folks, this one more of a butterfly, although it's not like big creature effects, it's just, I don't even know how to explain it. And that's really kind of this thing where I appreciate his ambition. You definitely tell the heart's in it. The music, they incorporate some of the theme of Kamen Rider into some of the musical points of the movie and the score. And I didn't mind that. That was nice to hear. But it's kind of like the movie is going ahead of you and just kind of pulling you along, and you're trying to keep up, but then you don't understand things maybe 100%, or wait, what, that's what now? Maybe if you're a hardcore Kamen Rider fan, you'll definitely understand this film a bit more. And maybe if you're a hardcore Kamen Rider fan, you'll get more out of this. But as a guy who's very much a noob, I'm like, okay, yeah, I was entertained by it. But again, the dialogue sections was kind of like a bit of a slog to get through. You kind of want to say the old adage, show, don't tell. Because, okay, this is action scene, then we find the spider guy, and then we defeat him, and then, oh, now the professor, he's dying, and they escape this exploding building, and then there's these agents, and then the agents go, hey, work with us, and we're going to deal with Shocker, and that whore's Pinker. And then, oh, there's this dialogue, but then here's this bad guy who's like working with the bad guys, and he's a scientist, and the lady goes there, but it's a decoy, and so the Kamen Rider follows the bad guy and does a swan dive on his back. I did like the idea that when he lands, the foot is in the back, so he's got to try to pull it out. You see a bit of blood. Like, there's bits of that I do like. But then it'll throw in, and I have no idea why this was in here, the Scorpion lady, who's like killing all these soldiers, and she's very like, hey, how's it going? Like, very excitable, gleeful kind of girl. And then just again, the spoilers. I did not realize until later that she got killed by the military. Because she's like killing the guys and throwing them around, and her henchmen get killed, shot up. The cops are around her. Now, I just assumed, I guess, because we didn't see them pump bullets into her, that okay, she's going to come back because she's one of the monsters. You gotta have the hero fighter. You know, fight the Scorpion lady. But no. Then it comes into play. The only thing is they take like one of her venom things and uses it against another bad guy. But I'm like, okay, so you're setting up this villain who's like trying to be like filled with personality and hey, how's it going? And but then a murderous bitch. But then she's just murdered. She's just killed by the soldiers, kind of off screen. That felt weird. It felt as if, why was this person in this in the first place? She never deals with the lead characters. She never comes back and, oh, you thought I was dead, bitch? No. So I'm sitting there going, did this need to be in the movie? Did this character need to be in the movie? Did this villain need to be in the movie that doesn't even get tackled on? I guess the lead hero? It just felt arbitrary. It just felt unneeded. And that's what I mean, is like they try to stuff so much in between the big dialogue bits that it kind of, I think, suffered because of that. And then I'm thinking, okay, it's a movie, so we're going to be dealing with the Corporation Shocker and how they're going to deal with Shocker and how they're going to defeat it. But then, no, it takes a side step into becoming instead about Roriko's brother. Because, okay, first they deal with this wasp lady who's the girl's friend, and she can move around like the Flash, and Kamen Rider's blocking her swords. And in the CG, it's not Hollywood style. But I mean, even though it's blatantly CG, is I don't know, I did the ambition, the creativity, what they're trying to do, I could deal with. I do like the costume work. And Kamen Rider throws the wasp lady, but doesn't want to kill her until finally his soldiers come in, agents come in, and use that scorpion venom thing onto her. But then it's okay, now it's the girl's brother, who again, his mom was killed, so he hates humanity, and he wants to take care of humanity. I'm like, well, how does this work for Shocker? Is he the leader of Shocker? No, I guess he is working for Shocker, but now we're going on this bit, now we're dealing with him. Oh, and then an hour in of this 2-hour movie, now we have a second Kamen Rider, and where did he come from? Okay, who is he? I guess he's a photojournalist how did he become a Kamen Rider? How did that come about? Why did this come about? Now we're having evil Kamen Riders against a good Kamen Rider. I had to look up, apparently, in the show, there was a second Kamen Rider who, I guess, kind of took over and became the lead of the show. And I guess when the first came back, then he was labeled Kamen Rider 2. I guess kind of like a Spider-Man. Went too fast, puts Peter Parker and Spider-Man together. When you had Ben Reilly, oh, he's the clone. He's not a clone here, but, oh, the clone of Spider-Man, but then the real Peter Parker came back, and then you had Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, then you had Spider-Man. So I guess here's like Kamen Rider, now we have to... I'm like, okay, and this guy becomes a brand new character. I'm like, okay, so now we have a brand new lead character, not just a lead character, halfway through. Now I say lead, he's one of the leads because our first Kamen Rider is still the lead, but it's like, okay, now this guy's a lead, and because I don't know anything about Kamen Rider, because I didn't see that stuff, I'm a bit more confused as who's this guy, and what's his deal, and why is he here, and okay, he's brainwashed, so the two get into a fight. Some nice wide shots where it's in the daytime and it's like a factory area, and you see them kind of jumping back and forth and being kind of equal until one breaks our lead character's leg. But then the girl's able to take care of the second evil Kamen Rider's brainwashing. Super spoilers. She gets picked off by the chameleon, who turns himself invisible. And again, I do like his costume. I think it looks pretty neat with the way they designed it. And now it's the second Kamen Rider fighting this guy and kicking his ass. I think he even like breaks his helmet, which looked pretty cool, pretty stylistic. Nice impact, pew, breaking the guy's helmet and falls off. You see a little bit of the guy's face, like half of it. But again, it's kind of one of those weird things where they made such a violent start at the beginning with these henchmen. There's a part of me wishing they would have gone with that against the main villains. In Rikyo style. You're doing this and their chest explodes or they pop their head off. But, well, it's not Mortal Kombat. Well, they're the ones who started at the beginning with all the fucking blood and violence and squishing people's heads with their foot or slamming a fist through their face against a tree or something. They started that, not me. So it's weird, like they do it for the henchmen by just the main villains. It's like, nah, we're not going to have them get gory deaths. I don't know. I felt a bit cheated on that front. So the second Kamen Rider kills him, kind of like a big kick, and the guy flies back, and then he kind of dies. That's for me, like, why can't he have a gory death? The girl dies. I just put her soul in the first Kamen Rider, the main one's helmet. Premise says, hey, you may be happy, that type of stuff. The two don't work together to deal with her brother. And that's where you get to see in the tunnel. Getting very, very CGI heavy. I wouldn't say I loved the scene because of how much CGI was used. There's very much a lack of practical. I mean, the whole tunnel was CG. Again, if I looked at it like an anime, like live action anime style, it kind of, I had some fun with how zany it was. With like, you have a bunch of them jumping on one way and then the two jumping the other way, and like one guy hits like four of them in a standstill of kicking, and how they're throwing all around, and it's zany, it's crazy, it's over the top. Although sometimes it's a bit hard to understand who is who, because our two heroes have this red scarf and the others don't, but it's so damn dark, like it's hard to tell. And even between the two leads, like which one is Kamen Rider and which one is the second one? I know sometimes like one has like a red and one has like a white clear visor, but when they're all lit up red, so I'm like, well, who's kicking that person? Who's punching that person? Is that the lead or is that the other guy who's kind of one of the leads now? So it's a bit hard to understand and figure out what the hell was going on. The two fight the bad guy, they get their asses kicked, they help each other out. The second one, I thought this was a cool moment where he takes his helmet and bashes the others, and both their helmets break, and the way it's done in slow-mo, very stylistic, looked really cool. That looked really neat. And pretty much the first one puts his helmet on the guy. The guy reconciles with his sister, and then kind of he's done. I guess if you're Rama, I forget whatever it is, your energy is expunged too much. You turn to soap bubbles, which I think they tried to explain. I think they tried to explain that in dialogue, but I didn't remember. Because I know that was in the original show in the pilot where people turn to soap bubbles. I'm like, why is people turning to soap bubbles? And yet the bad guy and our lead turn to soap bubbles. I guess because they use too much energy. So now all that's left is the second guy who I barely know other than he was a photo guy, photojournalist who got brainwashed. And then the agents come in and goes, will you take up for the Kamen Rider, the mantle? I guess the first Kamen Rider's soul is in that guy's helmet because they're talking to each other. That's what I mean. I think, and I think, and I think because I never watched the show. I guess if you watch the show, you would know, oh, that's a reference to this, that's a reference to that, but it just comes off as a bit of a messy narrative because they try to put so much, and then in the downtime between the fights, we gotta throw all this expository dialogue, and if you're a guy like me who, again, has only seen one episode, you're like... But I do appreciate the ambition of the production, the motorcycle, where it at times hovers like a jet, the costumes, the fight seems to be fun. The 2 points where the lead's fighting the henchmen, yeah, some pretty gory stuff. That was cool. I wish that was throughout the entire movie. I don't think the acting was bad. They try to give a bit more of a... They try to be less campy and a bit more serious. And I could appreciate that because, like I said, you could tell this wasn't a cash grab. You could tell that obviously the people making this, they were big fans of the show. Again, with the way they incorporate the theme into the musical score. I had to look some stuff up. Apparently there's a lot of references to the show in this movie. And like I said, but I don't know if this is 100% successful for someone who's never seen the show. I mean, it's no Inframan, I'll say that, from the 70s. I liked Inframan more. Because that one felt more like a... I mean, that's much more sillier, but it was more like a proper... As goofy as it is, like more of a proper storytelling, while this... It does feel like you're trying to jam a whole season of a show into a 2-hour running time. And obviously because you do that, that means there's some shortcuts you need to take. And it could be a bit confusing. And again, because of these long expository dialogues, like, okay, I'm listening to this, so I'm less confused, but I don't know, maybe if there's a bit more stylistic way to tell this bits of info. And again, I would say the fight between the henchmen and the fight with the spider guy was the best. So while some of the fights were okay later on, I thought they kind of busted their cherry a bit early, where I think like the best stuff is at the beginning. I mean, maybe you can have some fun with the tunnel bit, although it's very, very CGI'd. So it depends how you feel about that with the way the scene looks. Again, the fight at the end is pretty much them getting their asses kicked until they do a couple stuff here and there, to be fair. Some pretty decent choreography. I mean, I still liked it. It was still fun to watch. And I would say if you're a huge fan of this type of Japanese superhero type of stuff, if you're a big fan of the show, it's definitely worth a look. Like I said, I do appreciate what they were trying to do, and that goes a long way for me. It's just, it didn't have the best flow if that makes sense. I'm still a bit pissed they misled me, thinking it was going to be this big, gory, like Diver 2 Dart Hero. Much more low budget film. But I would put that above this, because that one I thought followed through as like more of a story, better paced, with, I thought, honestly, better fight scenes. I would say Diver Dart Hero definitely has better fight scenes, and the gore I thought was consistent with the throughout the film. So this might have cost more, but Diver Dart Hero I still think did that a bit better. Because I'm not a fan of the first Diver film, but the second one, Dart Hero, was pretty good. So it's just I wish they had the budget this had. But again, this wasn't bad. So with that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye bye for now.